From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Honoring a legacy and a culture with a whole lot of inspiration.
I'm still blown away when I look at it.
See what had people picking up paintbrushes in North Dakota. A familiar foe moves to a new state. See the latest victim of the dreaded tar spot. As Russia's president tries to pull back on its UN-negotiated grain deal with Ukraine.
We do have reports that it has been going to the Middle East and African countries.
A reality check right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Wheat futures posted a rally on Wednesday as Russia's President Vladimir Putin says he may back out of the Ukrainian grain export deal. Now, he claims Ukraine is cheating on the UN-brokered agreement. AgDay's Michelle Rook has the details.
Clinton, President Putin is vowing to look at revising the terms of the landmark export deal that allows Ukraine to export its grain via the Black Sea. He wants to limit the countries that can receive shipments, saying Ukrainian grain exports are not going to the world's poorest countries as originally intended, including Africa and others that are in dire need of food. Putin told an economic forum that almost all the grain exported from Ukraine is going to European Union countries, saying only 2 of the 87 ships carrying 60,000 tons of product went to poor nations, and further warned of a looming food crisis. He says the agreement is just brazen deception by the international community. However, market analysts tell us that's not the case.
We do have reports that it has been going to the Middle East and African countries. So it'll be interesting to see what his goal is with talking about it, but definitely led to some fears that he might cancel the agreement and the incentive right now altogether.
Russia reportedly has a big wheat crop this year and prices have declined. So analysts believe Putin is making a play to reduce export competition for that crop.
Russia would prefer to get the dollars from the wheat sales in order to continue to push forward with their war and finance that war.
Beadle says the export deal is set to expire in late October, early November, and so this is an early indication that Putin will likely renegotiate the terms or not agree to a deal at all. Beadle says the wheat rally is also tied to concerns about an environmental disaster and crop contamination with the possible destruction of a Ukraine nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe. Plus, Ukrainian grain officials are estimating 40 to 60% of Ukraine's winter grains won't get planted this fall due to the war.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Meanwhile, the food crisis is growing in Africa. UN's humanitarian chief says, quote, "We are in the last minute of the 11th hour to avoid a full-blown disaster in Somalia," end quote. While on a visit to the country this week, he delivered what he called a final warning. According to the UN, 1.5 million children across Somalia will face acute malnutrition by October. That's if the current conditions remain. The situation is believed to be worse than the 2010 food crisis there. The current crisis is due to 4 consecutively dry, rainy seasons, decades of conflict, mass displacement, and severe economic issues. Now, he warned these conditions are likely to last through at least March of next year. Well, corn and soybean conditions remain the same in the latest crop progress report. Cotton saw positive change. Good to excellent ratings improved by 1% from the previous week. Now 35% of the crop is in those categories. 31% is rated very poor to poor. That's a 5% drop from last week.
It is the southern Great Plains continuing to drive this cotton condition lower. Even with the improvement, Texas cotton 45% very poor to poor. A modest improvement from last week's 53%. But we saw cotton conditions declining slightly in Oklahoma, now 57% very poor to poor, and Kansas now 46% very poor to poor.
Even with this week's improvements, the crop is still running well behind last year, when 61% was good to excellent and just 7% poor to very poor. Now, tar spot has claimed a new state. Researchers in Maryland report they found the first confirmed case in the state at a farm in Harford County. The disease, which impacts corn, is caused by a fungal pathogen. It appears as black spots on corn leaves. It was first detected in the U.S. in Illinois and Indiana back in 2015 before spreading throughout the Corn Belt. Now, it's believed it spread via wind-blown spores and also by dragging infested corn residue on combines or equipment into new fields. Officials say right now, most of the corn in Maryland is probably far enough along to not worry about it too much this year, but yield losses as much as 50% have been reported if corn is at the early dent stage or earlier. California's capital city of Sacramento hitting 116 degrees earlier this week, the hottest day on record for that city. But that's not all. Record highs were also hit in parts of Northern California, Utah, and Montana, with some cities shattering previous daily highs by more than 10 degrees. As a result, some of the nation's largest utility companies are notifying their customers to prepare for potential rotating power outages. While the West remains wrapped up in high heat, all the rain in the south and southwest is really helping pasture conditions right now. Meteorologist Maggie Rasavik has the latest look at the root zone moisture map.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. Let's take a look at that root zone moisture map because we've seen some changes, still very unsettled in parts of Texas and in parts of the Gulf Coast and even the Mississippi River Valley where we see a lot of blue, something we have not seen in a very long time, especially in parts of Texas. Still extremely dry though, right through the middle part of the country, up into parts of the Corn Belt and the Rockies where we could see a little bit more rain over the next couple of weeks. But here's a look at our precipitation over the next few days. Most of this is going to happen in the south and east and up the east coast as we bring in some more tropical moisture there, some heavier downpours, and then there's another smaller system moving through the northern plains and upper Midwest. Overall, as we head through this upcoming week and the end of the current week, above normal precipitation in the west and across much of the southeast and the east coast, all the way up into parts of New England. Right across the center of the country, though, it will be extremely dry, drier than what we normally would see right around this time of the year. And we'll continue to track that on AgDay. And look at this terrific shot from Carol Bauer. The northern lights just stunning in Graceville, Minnesota over the holiday weekend. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Wheat prices were up, but other commodities were under pressure on Wednesday. We'll have details next, coming up in analysis. And later, art transforms a North Dakota town. We're off to Fort Yates in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by Endzone from Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your Endzone fan now and get 13% off while supplies last.
The EPA has denied a request by a leading U.S. producer of liquefied natural gas to exempt 2 Gulf Coast plants from a federal air pollution rule. The request coming from Cheniere Energy. An EPA spokesman says the agency denied the company request to waive a rule that limits emissions of cancer-causing formaldehyde released by gas-fired turbines. Now, dozens of turbine operators faced a Monday deadline to comply with the formaldehyde rule, which is being reinstated after an 18-year stay. Cheniere had warned that new requirements on LNG plants in Texas and Louisiana could disrupt gas supplies to Europe, an area that has struggled with surging energy prices following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Corn futures rose to the highest levels in over 2 months on concerns about potential disruptions to Ukrainian shipments that we first told you about at the top of the newscast before falling back there in the afternoon. Michelle Rook has more in this morning's market report.
And joining us with market analysis, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. Brian, we got a pop in the wheat market on Wednesday on that Ukrainian export news. Do you think we'll see much follow through, or was it just a one-day pop?
Well, anytime you get a news story, it's usually about a one-day pop unless there's some follow-through. So we need to see something different than we probably saw. And in fact, the bulk of the fireworks were over fairly quickly. Wheat was up well over 50 cents, finished up about 30 higher. So now it's whether or not words have action and whether or not Putin follows through, or this is just more rhetoric. But technically, the market has a really nice-looking chart breaking through what I would call neckline resistance on an inverted head and shoulders formation and pushing through the upper Bollinger Band. These are technical signals. So good day, good turnaround, maybe a wake-up call to the world that wheat supplies on exportable countries are still at 15-year low levels.
So we'll see if we get any follow through, but we also had the corn market follow wheat early, and then what happened? Did we run up into chart resistance or what?
You did. There's a lot of macro things that are kind of waiting on the corn. The corn market itself, you look at it, if the pro farmer numbers are right or the DTN numbers, we're going to be really tight in inventory, but you're approaching harvest. You had a crude oil market that really took a spell, dropped $4 or $5 a barrel at its lowest level since mid-March. Hard for corn to sustain that. So when the short covering in corn ended, it looked like there was some air under the market. It just didn't have any buys underneath, and it flipped over and dropped and finished in negative territory, posting a hook reversal. Admittedly, it did run right up against some resistance points too that I have in my charts, some moving averages and some inverted head and shoulders outlook points. So it wasn't surprising to see. I don't think farmers selling just engulfed the market, though. I think farmers are very selective sellers. There's probably some of that, but not a lot.
And just quick, soybeans, we took out some key support. Will we keep going lower?
Yeah, tough looking market there. You could argue that the yield number might be closer to the USDA around 51.5, 52 bushels. That's what the privates are saying. So when the market didn't follow through yesterday, again, the tech selling came in, pushed it kind of hard, arguing that crude oil, again, the big blunt, big down day pulling corn and beans.
All right, thanks so much, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing, and we have ag weather coming up.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779. AgDay is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, taking a look at jet stream. Here we go midweek, and it looks like more heat out west, but that could be changing pretty soon.
Yeah, it looks like we've got some signs of some things to come. More rain across the northern tier and also some cooler air filtering in, especially through the middle of the country as we head through the weekend and into early next week. But you can still see that ridge holding strong over Salt Lake City, down toward Phoenix and Los Angeles, but it's really what's up here to the north. If you look toward Billings, that jet stream, we're going to see some of that cooler air start to dip into the northern plains there. And that's going to be a cold front that's going to sweep across the northern plains and into the Great Lakes, eventually bringing in some cooler, more refreshing air, at least through the middle part of next week. You see this upper low, this cutoff low is going to swing its way on through, and as it does, create some unsettled weather along with it. But then notice what happens as that moves on through parts of the Midwest and into the Northeast. What happens to that ridge? It's not nearly as tall, but also still keeps that heat possible back in the west, but also allows things to be more unsettled as we head through towards the second half of next week as well. But here's a look at our jet stream energy on Monday, and this right here is what's going to produce those scattered showers, maybe a few thunderstorms, and as that moves its way across parts of the Great Lakes and the Midwest, that's bringing with it the cooler air and the rain, and eventually moves it up into New England and then up and out of here as we head through the second half of next week. So here's a look at the next 10 days with regards to that precipitation. Basically two systems, one coming out of the Gulf, one coming across the northern plains. They meet up, cooler air and some rain here across parts of the Midwest, the Corn Belt, and the Great Lakes, and then a lot of tropical moisture going on down across Florida and the Southeast, while we still have some showers and storms possible back in the West. And that's all because of high pressure here holding strong right in the middle of the country. Here comes that part of that system moving out of the northern plains, and then you've got this stalled out front down here towards the west, eventually starts throwing back in some of that tropical moisture. And that's what's going to create more of that rain chances for the southeast as we head through the middle part of the weekend and into next week. And we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Lansing, Michigan, morning fog and then sunny and warm, a high near 81 degrees. Heading towards Stillwater, Oklahoma, it'll be sunny and hot with a high of 90 degrees. And then as we head towards Spokane, Washington, sunny and warm, a high near 80 degrees.
From the good news file this morning, South Dakota's Governor Kristi Noem has signed an executive proclamation making a 7-year-old boy the state's corn ambassador. Tariq, or the Corn Kid, as he's become known, became a viral video sensation for clips in which he enthusiastically declared his love of corn. They've even made a song about it. Well, over the weekend, he accepted an invite to South Dakota's Corn Palace, and his fame continues to grow. Last month, Chipotle posted a promotional video featuring Tariq on social media. Meat packers say supply chains are good, but margins are shrinking. We'll tell you why coming up next. And later, sometimes a town needs a little inspiration and a fresh coat of paint. We'll see how that's working out for one community in North Dakota, in the country. After big margins during the pandemic, meat packers say supply chains are better, but profits are thinning out. The Wall Street Journal reporting that U.S. pork companies are paying more for hogs and exporting less to China. That's pressuring margins for companies like Tyson and Seaboard. Despite better supply chains, rising costs for grain, fuel, and other supplies are shrinking hog herds and making the animals harder to come by. High meat prices and inflation are also pressuring consumer demand. The $43 billion U.S. pork industry is lowering its outlook for the year ahead, calling for tight hog supplies and fewer exports. One Wyoming rancher is suing 4 hunters, claiming they caused damages to his property of up to $7.75 million. Now, the property is called Elk Mountain Ranch. It's owned by Iron Bar Holdings. The owner claims the 4 hunters from Missouri trespassed on his property when they did a corner crossing between areas managed by the Bureau of Land Management in Carbon County, Wyoming. It's an area commonly known as the checkerboard. The owner contends he owns and controls the airspace above his property and has the right to exclude others from using it. One nationwide sportspersons conservation group telling Wyophile.com the damage figure is the most egregious thing he's ever seen, but another person with the Wyoming Stock Growers Association sees it differently. He says a decision that corner crossing is not trespassing could devalue a ranch due to the fact it's no longer closed property, but a public crossing. A little paint and a lot of inspiration. They're coming together to help beautify one North Dakota town in the country.
Ag Day, brought to you by Rumensin. Rumensin's quality, consistency, and efficiency make it the right choice for your cattle operation. Rumensin, trusted by generations.
A handful of buildings in one North Dakota town recently underwent a transformation. The project involved several coats of paint and a group of artists, but as Jody Kurzman of AgDay affiliate KFYR reports, the buildings aren't the only thing transformed.
I hate this whole part.
Kennedy Pleats
I did the shading
is her own worst critic.
I feel like I can definitely do this whole part over so much better.
Still, for her first spray paint mural, she's pretty happy with how it turned out.
I really like this nose part.
Kennedy is one of 12 local artists chosen to transform buildings around her hometown of Fort Yates.
And it's for everybody.
Brianne Luger and her 13-year-old son painted this mural with paint and wheat paste.
It was inspired by my culture and from all the ceremonies.
The mother-son team painted their mural on the side of White Buffalo Foods. It's a high-traffic spot on the main street coming in to Fort Yates. That makes it hard to miss.
It meant a lot to me personally. I grew up just on the other side of this building. So much of my childhood is spent around this area.
Not really one of those people, but man, I feel a lot of good energy here. And
For Colin Snyder, it was a chance to honor his daughter.
The favorite part was probably her face.
She was the inspiration for Colin's mural.
I'm still blown away when I look at it.
His daughter's reaction, captured in this cell phone video, makes it even more special to Colin. And now that they've finished their first murals, these Fort Yates artists are ready to do more and share what they've learned.
The reservation is full of great artists. And hopefully we can, with these can inspire the youth.
And now, instead of unoccupied buildings, they see blank canvases, possibilities, and hope. In Fort Yates, I'm Jody Kurzman, reporting for your news leader.
All right, thanks, Jody. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on the farm.